So we're really excited about this next panel, Writing for the Screen. I think we're going to be bringing in our panelists any minute. But this next event is brought to you by the San Diego Writers and Editors Guild, a group of writers and editors dedicated to improving their skills and helping others to do the same since 1979. They have regular meetings on the fourth Monday of each month and welcome new members. If you missed the June meeting, you can go to their website, sdwritersguild.org, and see a recording of the June meeting, which covered the costs, royalties, and how to make back your investment with Susie Schaefer. Their July program is an annual open mic night, so that might be fun. That link is also going to be in the comments section. So towards the end of this panel, we are going to have a Q&A. And for those of you watching on Facebook, please post your questions to the comments, and we will forward as many of those as we can to Carlos. So we have, our moderator is Carlos de los Rios, and we have Gabe and Zizi Bologna, Elea Oberon. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Elea Oberon? Yes, okay. Mark Brazill and Kirk Ellis. So it's my pleasure to introduce the moderator, Carlos. Hey, Carlos.
Hey there. How's it going, Anastasia?
Good, good. So Carlos de los Rios is a 20-year veteran of the movie business. He is a writer and producer of 10 feature-length films, including studio movies for Academy Award winners Lauren Bacall and Harvey Fierstein, Academy Award nominee Elliott Gould, Emmy Award winners C. Thomas Howell and Johnny Galecki. His movie, Diablo, won the grand prize at the San Diego Film Festival of 2015. I was there for it. It was awesome. He is an award-winning documentarian who is currently writing a feature script for Hollywood legend, producer Lee Kaplan, that is based on a Pulitzer Prize-winning novel. Welcome, Carlos, and I'm going to just throw it over to Carlos to get things started. So again, if you have questions, please post them in Facebook so we can get them answered for you.
Thank you so much for that, Anastasia. That's probably a bit much considering some of the rock stars we have on this panel. I've definitely worked in the industry, but we got a couple people here who've done a lot and a couple others who are newer to producing, but boy, oh boy, are they sure blazing new trails. I'm going to just say real quickly, Mark, it's nice to meet you via Zoom officially. And Kirk, same with you. I have never met you either. And you guys are both superstars in the industry. Great to have you aboard. I think we're going to get right to it. Basically, today's thing is, this panel is just to discuss screenwriting in all the various formats. Obviously, Mark Brazill is a master and expert of television comedy. The half-hour comedy is his, he's one of the masters of it. Kirk Ellis is a master of the miniseries for primarily premium cable, meaning HBO, Showtime, that kind of stuff. Gabe is another, master of so many films. He's worked in every aspect. We'll talk about it in a minute. And of course, we have our two ladies here. Elea's worked on a lot of films, and Zizi is actually finishing her first film, which makes her as a producer, which puts her in a very unique position. So I feel we have a very balanced panel. I'm going to get going right off the bat here, introducing the panelists officially. So we're going to start with Mark Brazill. Mark Brazill, originally from, Emmy Award nominee, Mark Brazill, originally from Buffalo, New York, started as a stand-up comic and was a regular at both the Comedy Store in La Jolla and later the Improv. He toured extensively all over the U.S. into the 90s. After opening for Dennis Miller, he was asked to write for him if his first show got picked up, which it did. From there, he went on to In Living Color. Then he wrote and produced NBC's The Third Rock from the Sun. But he's most known as the co-creator, producer, and showrunner for the hit Fox sitcom That 70s Show, which was loosely based on his years as a teenager. That 70s Show ran for 8 years, I think, if my research is correct. Mark's stand-up is a masterful blend of slice-of-life family stories and cutting-edge political observations. Starting in the 1990s, he appeared on multiple stand-up comedy showcases, including The A-List and An Evening at the Improv. But that's how he got started. I'm going to just take a small pause before I move on and introduce others and say, unfortunately, due to COVID, we were hoping we were going to see Mr. Brazill live and be able to hand him a piece of glass that he basically is the recipient of the 2020 San Diego Writers Festival award for outstanding achievement in comedy writing. And again, I'm so sorry, Mark. I wish due to COVID, I'm at home, working from home, and the award is sitting in an office. So we unfortunately never got your address or wherever you want us to send it. But you offline, not now, but offline, you give us your whatever address you want, and it's a nice piece of crystal, a thick, heavy piece of crystal. We'll send it right to you. Okay. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that he's one of our award winners this year, and we're very proud of Mark for all of his achievements. I mean, if you just heard what I said, In Living Color, Third Rock from the Sun, That 70s Show. I mean, come on, that's outrageous. I'd kill for one of those credits. So to Mr. Brazill, thank you. Congratulations, I meant to say. Congratulations. Okay, now the rest of our panel. Let's get going here. Gabriel Bologna is a veteran of the film and TV world. He's directed 10 movies, including The Theory of the Leisure Class, The Black Waters of Echo Pond, and the recent Tango Shalom. He's written and directed for Academy Award winners and nominees alike. And he also taught at UCLA Extension Film Department for 10 years. And that doesn't even scratch the surface. We could probably spend, literally I could go on his credits for 10 minutes. So that's not even touch his acting. He did acting for 20 years or 20 something years. So that's another whole 30 something credits there. But so he's a great director. He's an actor, writer, director, producer. So those kind of folks. Okay, let's go on here. Elea Oberon is a longtime actress in the industry, now focusing on producing. She produced the film Sin's Kitchen, starring the amazing Jeffrey Wright. She also produced The Longest Ride, starring Scott Eastwood. More recently, she has wrapped on another movie that we'll get into in the deeper questions. I don't want to discuss it yet because it's such an interesting project. I want to hold that back, what that project is that she's just wrapped. Let's see here. And we also have Kirk Ellis. Kirk Ellis won 2 Emmys, a WGA Award, a Peabody, and the Humanitas Prize for his work as a writer and co-executive producer on the HBO miniseries John Adams. The miniseries won a record-breaking 13 Emmys in total, as well as 4 Golden Globes. Previously, Ellis received an Emmy nomination and won the WGA Award and Humanitas Prize for the ABC miniseries Anne Frank, I think for ABC, which he wrote and co-produced. He also adapted McCullough's 1776 and James Ellroy's American Tabloid. Miniseries on which he has served as writer and producer have garnered more than 50 Emmy nominations. So that's a lot of stuff going on there. And now I just gotta find the Zizi. What did I do here? Where's my Zizi? It can't be that complicated here. I'm looking a little like an old professor looking through his notes. Let's see here. No. One more second, please. I'm sorry. I've got so many great notes here for our session. I'm kind of... Well, bottom line, I do know. I read it so well. I actually know the the intro. Zizi has been involved in the entertainment industry for something like 20-something years. Is that right, Zizi? Like on the music side. She's like 20 years on the music side. But what she's done now is produced her first feature film, which I believe has not yet been released. It's right. You're about to release it. Yes. So that's one of the kind of exciting things. I mean, I love having 2 women on the panel, but I also love the fact that we've got people like Mark Brazill and Kirk Ellis and Gabe, who are absolutely long time writing and producing veterans in the industry. And then we've got Elea, who's somewhere in the middle there, not quite as many credits as those gentlemen have, but she's been in the industry for quite a while. And then we got Zizi, who has a lot of entertainment experience, but her biggest accomplishment in feature film is the first film she just finished making. So I'm just very happy to have this great group of folks around with us today. Why don't we start off with some real simple questions? We're going to start with the kind kind of some general questions that are for the whole panel. They're not really intended for any one individual, but I will kind of guide who we go to so that we kind of don't lose our minds in terms of, 5 people talking over one another and all that kind of stuff. So let's see here. I think a great one to start with, and again, I do want to put a reminder out to our panelists, because I know our panelists here, the 5 wonderful writers and producers here, don't necessarily know much about the San Diego Writers Festival. I'm going to just put a little reminder out there that I would say it's fair to say that 90% of the people tuning in today are aspiring writers. So we do have some just fans. I might be wrong. Maybe the math is 80-20. I don't know. But there are fans of good writing and good literature, and I mean good material. But I would say most of the people tuning in, so you may notice that our questions are geared in large part toward kind of trying to guide and help newer aspiring writers understand what the process is like, what the road is like, and some possible tips that they might be able to get in terms of how they move themselves forward in this process. Okay, so when you're looking for a new project, what is it about the writing that draws you to it? Kirk Ellis, although you do your own writing, so.
Well, but I mean, a lot of the work I do is adapted from histories written or nonfiction by book authors, or it comes from real life. So it's a matter of finding your personal attraction to a character or an era or a situation. So there's no hard and fast rule for it. You've got to be able to, you're going to be spending with, the kind of projects I do, it's several years of research and then another year of writing on the project. So you're going to want to make sure you want to go to bed with these people every night. And so you have to pick and choose very carefully, in life as in art.
Okay, that's pretty good. Mark, what do you think about that one? About what do you look for? I mean, I'm not sure if you're even looking for new projects these days. I don't quite know what you're doing right now. You're very elusive, but Mr. Elusive. But what do you look for in a new project? I mean, in terms of the writing or the concepts, what draws you, Mark?
Well, I think 70s was really very character-based, and some people don't really worry about that, but I worried about it very much. I had a couple writers come over from Murphy Brown, and there was a question about, I said it's not joke-driven, it's character-driven, which is a little different in the sense that you know, Murphy Brown, it's a great show, Murphy Brown, but it felt like a lot of the stuff were one-liners that could go in anybody's mouth. Not a criticism, just subjectively, that's what it was. And my show was not that. They were, I like to think they were pretty sharply drawn characters with very sort of distinct points of view. And early on, I would have writers say, well, this is a great joke, so why doesn't this character say it? And I was like, we can't do it like that. I understand what's a great joke, but I always look for character. I look for, do I care about this person? Is this person flawed? I was very sort of surprised that Red became kind of the favorite character on the show. And I remember trying to cast him, and I had seen Kurtwood in Alexander Payne's film, Citizen Ruth. Uh-huh. And most people go, oh, he's the murderer from RoboCop. And I said, no, he's very funny. And my father was a badass. My father was not only in Korea, he was also in World War II. And so I needed a character that had some gravity, that had enough gravity to sort of make the kids in the basement be afraid of getting caught smoking weed. Because I think the suspense of that father walking in made those scenes work really well. And they made them, I actually think, funnier because there was an element of suspense added to it. So, character, it's like if I'm interested in the person, flawed, human, I mean, that's what I always look for. And when somebody asks me, I'm trying to adapt a show from Spain right now called Vote for Juan. And I'm adapting it in a way that I think it'll work in a rural America. And people are like, well, what's the show? And I say, well, it's Veep meets My Name is Earl. because maybe we're not done with politics just yet. And
I'd say probably not.
yeah, and I feel like if you could, and I don't, you know, I will not even mention, we dare not speak his name, but we have flawed people, and not to go off on the cancel culture, but it's like if we keep canceling each other, no one's going to be left. And so if we can't kind of see that, you know, and certainly there's extremes in both sides, left and right, that you find distasteful, but you know, it's like trying to show a accidental politician, you know, an accidental Mr. Chips, who's not perfect, and yet he's likable. And so rather than him having terrible fans who follow him and every terrible thing that comes out about him, you know, they follow him for that reason. It's more like every terrible thing that comes out about him, they go, hey, he's just like me. But he's trying to be better. And that's where I'm diverting off the path of a megalomaniac dictatorial tyrant. Anyway, by the way, you asked one question and that was 45 minutes. So thanks for coming.
I think to sum it, to get to the thing that I love the most that you said right there, I mean, really, you said it's character based. No matter what is happening, even people say, oh, it's a 30-minute sitcom. It's a jokey scenario. Who cares who says the lines? That's not the way you approached it. You still believe that Red had to be that kick-ass dad with a, you know, dumbass, right? He always, that was his classic, that's his one-liner. You know, he's always like dumbass. He'd always criticize the kids, and he was tough. And Kelso's always Kelso. He's dumb as a bricks, you know. And Fez is just, well, I don't know how to define Fez, but, you know, our polysexual, I'll try anything voice, you know. So you know, the voices were definitely distinct, and I think all people watching the show should take that note to heart. That's from a real straight up hardcore comedy creator, and he said, and even in comedy, he's saying don't just hand a one-liner off to any character. It's got to still come from the voice of. That's what I took from what you said, Mark.
Yeah. Wilmer was actually probably number 2 and most beloved. Wilmer, who played Fez. And, you know, the thing about Red was I was, in 1998, 99, when I did it, there were so many television shows where the husband was, or the father was a doofus, and the mother was, you know, the wife was a mother, and the fathers were sort of kind of childlike and goofy, and I was like, that was not my experience. I wanted to create a father who had a partner they had a partnership, but he was clearly not thrown in with the kids. He was clearly not immature. He was clearly not some kind of sitcom father of that decade. And so in that sense, I felt like that worked. You know,
it definitely did. I mean, I don't want to say too much, but I've seen probably every episode. Anyways, let me move on here and get a couple more thoughts here. I do want to say, let's start with Elea. Elea, what first drew you to be in the entertainment industry? Like, be an actress, a producer, what you are now. What was the first impetus? What was the first thing that popped in your brain and said, you know what, yeah, that's for me?
I was a child in Paris, and where I grew up, and the old Hollywood movies just took me away. And I've always been drawn to stories. I've always wanted to. It's a calling. But really, what made me want to come to America versus stay in France and work in France were the classic Hollywood movies. You know, they inspired me, and they gave me a lot of courage, and they made difficult situations of my childhood feel hopeful, and they gave me the strength to move forward. And I wanted to be a part of that. They taught me about who I am. They taught me about being a human. And they taught me about relating to other people. And a lot of people, you know, I'm highly functional, but I was an autistic child. And while I'm high on the spectrum, there was no such thing as Asperger's when I was a child. There was no such thing as these kind of diagnoses that help us understand the structure of our thinking and that are useful tools. Aside from, some people don't like labels. I don't see it that way. But as an autistic child, the movies that I would watch would help me learn how to relate to other people, would help me understand human interactions that I was challenged understanding. As some people have this are able to naturally read language interactions, and I was a little challenged in that capacity. And being able to watch movies and watching people work out challenges and have examples were a huge part of my evolution as a human being. And I just knew that I wanted to be a part of that.
And that's what drew you in. And when did you make the decision to do it? What age were you?
Maybe 3 or 4.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's what they tell me. I don't remember.
Okay. Wow. That's pretty early. Okay. Well, let me ask a couple other little questions here. I'm gonna, Zizi, I'd like to ask you, well, the same question, actually. We're still in our kind of general questions, then we'll get to specific ones. But so what first drew you in, Zizi, to want to be part of this business? Same question. I'm just passing.
Well, I read the script, and I just wanted to be part of it. And because it had a lot of dancing and music involved.
Oh, you're talking about your current film. I was asking, what drew you to entertainment business in general? Because I know you were involved in music for years before you. Yes, it's a broader question than just what made you want to make Tango Shalom, your current film. I meant more, what drew you into the entertainment? I know you were in music for years.
Yeah. Well, I was a ballet dancer with the Stuttgart Ballet. I was always interested in dancing, music, movies. And my father was a cineast, big time. So I grew up with Bollywood movies, with kung fu movies, you name it, vampire movies. I watched it all. And it just happened. I mean, it's not that it just came to me. So let's say that. Mm-hmm.
Great. I'm going to move on to a different question. Gabe, I'd like to ask you, and this is one of the most sensitive ones, but I think it's one of the ones that I think most writers aspiring writers, are so curious about. How many no's do you think you got before you got your first yes in any capacity?
It's a funny question because I'm still getting no's.
Well, we all are. Yeah.
Specifically, only no's for period piece scripts that I've written. I have written countless period piece scripts, none of which have been sold. It's really my deepest passion. I actually optioned one. I take that back. I've sold maybe 9 or 10 scripts, but none of them were period pieces. And that's really where my passion is. And, I'll be writing them for the rest of my life. It's like when you make a sandcastle, you don't make it for anyone else but yourself.
That's very philosophical right there. But just to get right back to the core question, how many no's do you think it took for you in the beginning of your career? How many no's do you think you got before you got a yes?
As a writer?
Sure. Yes, we're focusing on writing here. Yes.
It seems infinite. Literally, it seems. At one point, I thought to myself, this was before the internet, before digital submissions. I said to myself, I feel like a mailman because I'm always mailing things, and then I get rejection letters, and then I mail again. I think I'm a mailman.
You work for the post office, yeah. I just wanted to put it out there for those watching. I'm sorry,
Can I follow
please,
that up just a
of course,
second?
yes, please.
Yeah, so I mean, I've attended a lot of these, and I've moderated panels like this for years, and people come, with the expectation that it's going to be different for them, that they're going to write that one script that everybody's going to want to make. So to all those watching here in the Zoom verse, that's not going to happen. Okay, nobody's going to want to read that script. Okay, and until you have an agent, nobody's going to know who you are. So if you are hardwired for acceptance and being loved, this isn't your business. You have to learn rejection. You have to learn to take it and to come back fighting harder. Okay? There are no shortcuts. There are no easy ways. All the books that have been written about how to make a good script great, how to sell your script, they're worthless. They are not worth the paper they're printed on. Okay? Good writing comes out of living a life and, learning about things outside of films and listening to how people talk and learning how other people behave and what their mindsets are. You get to be, I've been at this now for over a quarter century, almost 30 years. I'm just now getting good at what I do. And that's, and I'm lucky to still be working, but, there's no shortcut to this. You just have to write and write and write and write and have the conviction and the passion for what you do. And our world is only partly about the words we put down on paper. There are, it was said that the world's oldest profession was prostitution. That's not entirely true, because the first prostitute had to pitch a story to somebody. So writing is the world's oldest prostitution profession. So we do this. I know that Mark does it. I do it every day. We've got to get on calls and we've got to sell the story, And I mean, we have to come up with those one-liners, and his was a great one for the adaptation of the Spanish show, because that's what it's about. We're in a really good place for storytellers right now because of the pandemic. People are going back to the written word. They're watching TV, but it doesn't make it any easier to sell anything. And now I'll calm down again. So,
great. Carlos, can I say, I will tell you,
please.
I have one, fairly terrifying story. I went to the World Series on the Fox party bus, which is embarrassing in itself. But by the way, I sat with I think Morgan and Wong and perhaps Vince Gilligan, and we sat in front of Don Fear, who was the players' rep. And I thought, wow, create a show for Fox. You'll get better seats at the series. But so on the way to the World Series, it was the Yankees versus the Padres, and I used to live in San Diego, and I was playing poker with Robert Altman. Okay, and I got on that bus. I saw Robert Altman, and I just made a beeline and parked myself next to him because it's Robert Altman, and we're playing poker, and then eventually I'm asking him questions, and eventually I got up the courage to go, hey, why are you on the Fox party bus, Robert Altman? And he said, oh, I did a show, I did a pilot that Gary Trudeau and I wrote, Gary Trudeau of Doonesbury.
Sure.
Gary Trudeau and I wrote a pilot, and I directed it. And I'd been doing 70s for about a year or 2 years at that point. And 70s was the first show I ran. And I said, when's that show come on? And he goes, oh no, they passed. And I was like, who passes on Robert Altman?
And Gary Trudeau.
Or Gary Trudeau. And I realized, you're never safe. You're never done. This is a horrible business. Kurt's right. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I really hit the question that hit a nerve.
How dare you?
I do appreciate all your guys' points there, because it's really critical. Great. That's a great story. That's amazing. That there's Robert Altman, one of the legendary directors of our business and producers, and he's still with all those Academy Awards and all the
Yes.
and it's still like on the Fox party bus selling. But I really did appreciate as well Kirk Ellis's notes about don't get your hopes up too high too quick, and that there's no shortcuts. That's one of my big things and mantras that I really do believe as well. There's no shortcuts. It's it's work, and you got to do it. And anyone that thinks their first piece is going to become some legendary, you see this once in a while. I went to school with John Singleton, and his first film, Boys in the Hood, came out. And but, these guys are 1 in a million. It's randomness, the timing. He's in Los Angeles. The riots are, everything's about to happen. It's that kind of thing. I mean, I witnessed it up close, but that's the kind of thing that almost never happens. It's like how people say, like, well, what about Julia Roberts or Charlize Theron? They were discovered and they became famous. It's like, yeah, but what about the other 75,000 movie stars, semi-stars? It took them 14 movies to get their first time they were recognized. It's a work. It's work. Anyways, I appreciate the comments and the honesty, guys. And that is a hilarious story, Mark. That's amazing. I'm going to go to Elea quickly here. This is a question that I think we discussed one time when we were talking. So I think this is one that's pretty good for you. What would you say to aspiring writers trying to break in terms of what to write?
I love that question. I think it's an essential question. And you hear it all the time, write what you know, write what you know. And, we were hearing the years of research that you spend if you don't know something to write it. But I think for me, what really connects me to a script when I read it is there's this magic that comes when somebody writes from something that's deeply meaningful to them. That the reason that this story is coming out, I think that it's more powerful when somebody writes. And what catches me, and I've narrated a lot of audiobooks as well, when people write from their gut and their soul, because if they don't get it out, they will never have peace. That to me is, what's going to make something really great, because it can't be taken from you. It can't be ripped off. If it comes from inside of you, if it's something that is your connection to a story or your own story, nobody can plagiarize it. Nobody can take it from you, and nobody's going to be able to tell it like you. So, I think the thing is to really have a strong connection to the material. And the other thing that I noticed, and our 3 veteran writers here have a real knack for this with the characters. And that's, when I read a script, the scripts that I connect to, after a while, I don't have to read who the character is. I just know from the speech pattern who that person is. I don't have to read the name of the characters anymore, and they all have their own voice in my mind, and I recognize it instantly.
Well, that comes from strong writing, I think, from voice, which I think was what Mark was kind of getting onto when he was saying about that 70s show characters that, people trying to say, well, this is just a funny line, let's put it over here. And he was like, no, it's got to go in the right mouth. Characters only speak the way they speak. And that is ultimately the ultimate test, I think, of a script, isn't it? That when you're tired at night and you're reading the script and you kind of forget you didn't even read which character it is, but you still know who it is because the dialogue, just only one character could say that.
Well, you're talking about only one element of the script, though. There, I mean, it's because you've got scripts are structure. That comes from that's basic literary architecture. And we're working in different fields. When you're working on a 30-minute television comedy, of course, the dialogue is a fundamental part of that. In feature films, it's often how little people speak that makes things identifiable. And certainly in my world of miniseries, you're trying to strike a balance between the visual and the verbal. But we can never lose sight of, in again, the comedic side of it being different, that this is a visual medium. It's not a verbal medium. So you are painting in pictures where you are handicapped by having to use the written word to create an image in a reader's mind that will ultimately be passed through a director's sensibility into a cinematographer's camera, projected onto a screen or a streaming service or television, so that you can now digest it. So it's every story merits its own special treatment. Some stories need to be verbal. Some stories need to be visual. Some stories need to find a balance between those two elements.
It's a great point, though, there, Kirk, about the difference between the different, a 30-minute
genres.
Sitcom intended for a network.
Yeah,
is different even than a 30-minute sitcom intended for streaming service, which is different than a feature film intended for theatrical release, which is different than a feature film intended for a TV movie, which is different also than, so each one of these has its own parameters, and it is really, it's a really great point, and I'm glad you brought that up as well, because it is again, in Mark Brazill's world, in the 30-minute sitcom, I didn't mean to box him in, but I'm just saying, in 30-minute sitcom, dialogue reigns. However, in the miniseries, for example, which is where you're the master of miniseries over there,
right.
Again, that's another thing, right? I just mentioned all these different, 30-minute sitcom, hour-long drama for TV, hour-long, there's a big difference between hour-long drama for network and hour-long drama for HBO. They're not even the same thing. And then miniseries, we'll get to that in a second. I do have a question for you about miniseries in a little bit. We'll get back to that. But that's a great point you raised as well. I'm going to go to Zizi for a second here. And this one's also going to go to Elea next. But how do you feel about the state? This is for our Zizi here. And again, Elea, I want you listening because I want your opinion as well. This is kind of for the ladies. How do you feel about the state of writing for female audiences currently? And kind of in what I'm asking really is anything missing in terms of female voices on screen in the scripts you read?
Well, I think that some shift happened since, Harvey Weinstein. And I feel that women, have the voice is stronger now, and I think that they're sitting now in better positions. And what I'm looking for is, the voice of empowerment. It's sad that, the only empowering movie out there is Wonder Woman. So we have to really, you break that the victimizing, that, most of the times you see the woman in a role where she's victimized or she's not empowered. And I'm looking forward now to have empowered women and a voice that's that tells a story, their personal stories. And I think that there's a shift. I think that, things will go that direction because women are strong. We are multitasking. And I think as producers, we are really equipped to produce because we do so many things in our life, like, putting things together, organizing our kids, our jobs, our families. So it comes very naturally. So that's what I'm looking forward. So to be more assertive and fearless.
Well, I like your idea about breaking the cycle of the victimized woman. That definitely that has a place and should never go away. That zone, but the overemphasis on it. Early in my career, I found myself in a Lifetime. I don't know why. Found myself in a Lifetime TV meeting, and I just asked my friend. I go, so what do you guys really want? And he goes, it's women in trouble. The guy next door is going to beat her, and I'm just like,
The guy who steps in and
Right.
is the hero.
Of
Yeah,
formula.
we are heroes. You know, we are our own heroes. We don't, we are
But
basically.
this is about 15 years ago, 18 years ago. So it's not recently, but that's what the guy said to me. I was just like, what?
Yeah.
Elea, same question to you again. So basically, state of writing for female audiences, and is anything missing in terms of female voices on screen in the scripts you read? Anything you see there, Elea?
Well, that's a very loaded question for me because I don't look at men and women in terms of sexuality. I look at feminine principle and masculine principle in terms of energetic chords. And what I notice and the way that it looks, the way that it has looked, there have always been women, Mary Curie, the women who have wanted to do things in the world and who had it in them to do them have always done them. And I think it's the same thing, but what we're really looking at are the dynamics between oppressors and oppressed. And I think that those issues can get confused sometimes. And what I like to look at is, when I have a much more Eastern view of masculine and feminine in the terms of, I look at feminine as a receptivity or the container in which the masculine exerts itself. But on a purely energetic principle. And yes, that translates sexually, but that's not just the only meaning of it. And it's about, we're looking at power over, power under. And even in the world where now we're looking at the world, it's no longer just men and women, but we're looking at all the, LGBTQ issues and how, so I feel like the dialogue, is not so much about men and women, but about power over, power under. A lot of times in the world in the gay world, the bottom is considered lesser than, and it's that there's been a driving, the way that this country is built with sports and this kind of raw energy that is the energy that is that kind of male dominance has been celebrated, and now we're coming into a time where there's a balance coming. And it's very clear to me in the entertainment that I see that the gentle force is being shown as strength. It's not just the raw energy that is the dominant. And so that there's a balance.
I think you're saying like femininity as strength. I mean, the sort of.
And empowered women,
stability as strength.
Yeah, empowered women are not necessarily, there is a strength to femininity. There is a strength to gentleness. There is a strength to being steady and going at it for the long haul. There's the strength of the intellectual, the intellectual over time. Yeah.
Oh, well, I think like you throw the term beta and alpha around. The most alpha and complete person in the world who chose to be a beta, I think, for his own purposes, was Jesus Christ. Which, to me, that strength is, well, yes, I could rain hail and fire and lightning down upon you, and I've chosen not to. And I feel like in America, we need to look at people like that, people like Gandhi, not to be male-centric, but people that play the long game with patience and endurance. And we really need to look at them as more heroic than we do. We're a little skewed, Right. That's
a great point, Mark. And that's just great, Elea. I really appreciate that.
And that's the thing that is working, and where we're working now is to get that energy, the strength, the strength of the bottom is what we're, the strength. I said bottom.
We're in an S&M club here now. Apparently we've just gone into an S&M club, and
but it's just the one without the other. It's it's not about, the more we focus on the fracture of the two, the less we move forward. And I think that really the idea is to look at it more holistically in terms of the balance and each part having its own function to balance the other.
I like that, and I didn't realize we were going to get so deep. Man, I feel like I need to go get some. I need to get some incense and get my chakras cleared right now.
I should say, if you believe in Christ and the story of him, I shouldn't have. I don't want to.
No, I think it's a
No,
great.
no, I'm not taking a poll. I'm just saying, the whole thing. Dear God, don't go there. I'm just saying the story is.
Right. The story is he was a passive man who, you slap him and he says, turn the other cheek, hit my other cheek.
For you kids out there, he wasn't Thanos. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Most passive man ever, but arguably the most powerful man ever.
Right.
I got that one. I
think your point was well taken. I'm going to move to Gabe here. We're going to move to a slightly different topic, and we're going to get a little more specific because we're winding down on our time, and then we want to get a couple questions from the viewers. But Gabe, you're the son of Academy Award nominated writers Joe Bologna and Renee Taylor. Basically, my question is, did you have any choice about getting in the business?
My parents wrote maybe, 25, 30 plays, published plays. And I grew up in the rafters watching my parents' shows and going backstage, even, at the age of 5 with my nanny, just going backstage and giving them pointers on their show at intermission and saying, this is how you could get a laugh and that's how you could get a laugh. And I was very fortunate that I did not have that archetype of parent that said, why don't you get a real job? I had parents who said, oh, he can finger paint. What a genius. And I really think that was something very special, because I have to tell you, I have so many friends who have so many self-esteem issues because they're hearing in the back of their head, which is just terrible, of all the criticisms that they got their whole life from their parents. And it really makes the journey far more difficult. That being said, my parents were my greatest teachers and also showed me a world not through rose-colored glasses. They would teach me elements of this business, the maddening cruelty that I witnessed, thrown upon them. I remember being a kid and walking out into the snow where we were spending the winter in Vermont, and I found my parents weeping, hugging each other in the snow. It was almost like a frozen lake. And they had just gotten like the worst review you could possibly imagine. It was something like, these two have nothing except maybe each other. Like, the image of my parents weeping in their snow, their frostbitten, frozen tears. I also saw that element too. And that was, yes, my parents bronzed my poo. But I also saw how difficult this business was for them. And as difficult as it was for me, I had a great deal of learning experiences that I could fall back on. I'll give you an example. I went on a pitch meeting with my father once. I was like, I'm telling you, maybe 19, 20. And my father and I came up with an idea for a show, and his agent set up a meeting every hour on the hour all day. And I got to go around with my father to all these pitch meetings. I'd never known anything about, what a pitch meeting is or how you sell a show or a movie. And my dad and I had an idea for a series or something, and I was so honored that he, did this with me. And the assistant would come out and say, would you like a coffee? or Diet Coke? And my dad would say, yes, I'll take a Diet Coke. And the next meeting we went on, the person would come out and say, can I get you something? Pepsi or 7-Up? He's like, yes, I'll have a Pepsi. By the end of the day, my father had a stack of like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Diet Coke, Dr. Pepper. I said, Dad, I've only known you to drink espresso. I have never known you to imbibe soft drinks. What the heck are you doing? He said, Gabe, chances are 9 out of 10, this is all you're going to get from these schmucks.
That's right.
A can of Coke. You know why? Because you can drink it. You can hold it in your hand. And it is so true. Because I have spent countless winters weeping in the snow over God knows how many experiences of rejection. And I've been lucky that I've been able to hold on to these types of things because, yes, what you all guys are saying is true. There really is no easy route. It's you know, it's the way of the warrior. It's the hard route.
Can I say something about Gabe's parents? Even though they're Gabe's parents, I had dinner in Dan Tana's one night, and they sat at the table next to me, and I felt like I should have paid at the end because, first of all, they're two of the wittiest, funniest, quickest people, and it was a little like eavesdropping on a play because they're just hysterical and real and honest, and it's I can't imagine having to witness that. I remember the first show that I was a co-creator of was called Mr. Rhodes. And at the time, my father was still alive. My father passed away the year before I did 70s, so he never saw red, but he was red. That was my father. And you don't realize, like, I would read stuff, and I was a comic, so we get our balls busted, and we're mean to each other. And I also sold cars, and I was in a male-centric jobs, you know. I worked in a dog food factory. I busted balls. I'm from New York. We were bad to each other. But my father, who was in Korea in World War II, read a review for Mr. Rhodes and called me up in tears because they didn't like it. And honestly, I don't blame him. It was what it was. But I had never thought about what me doing this would do to my parents or my family. And I couldn't. So when I got on Third Rock, he was so happy and excited. People seem to like it. But, you know, it really, you know, it really is hard on your family, this thing, whether you know it or not. Whether you're successful or not, it's hard on the family.
That's a great story, though, about the Dan Tana's thing, because I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time, well, not a lot of time, but a significant amount of time with Gabe and his parents in Beverly Hills when we were younger. And you're exactly right there, Mark. Listening to them talk it's like you wanted to break out a notepad and just start scribbling, just like, yeah, keep going.
They were so funny and brilliant, though, and fast. It was amazing.
Yeah, no, they were, well, she's still around. Unfortunately, God rest his soul. Joe passed away very recently. So, you know, all best wishes to you, Gabe, on that, and, you know, the recovery of your family on that. Moving over, Kirk Ellis. We're running out of time, guys, so I'm going to have to just slam a couple questions out, then get a few from the – so we're going to go a little shorter here on these ones. But, Kirk, I understand – I'm trying to confirm – well, I'm not sure if it's true or not. Are you going to write a series based on the life of Benjamin Netanyahu, the controversial Israeli prime minister?
Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm working on that in the next room, actually. It's a dramatic series, not a limited series, for the producers of the great Netflix show Shtisel, which really took off during COVID. And it's an Israeli-American co-production. I'm in the process of writing the pilot and the outline for the first season.
It is a real project. I mean, it's happening.
Oh, yeah, it's real. It's happening.
Oh, okay. I just heard rumors that it was happening. I didn't understand. Yeah. I wasn't sure if it was confirmed.
It's happening, yeah. So that's a whole. I'm learning Hebrew at the moment. I've got Flimsur discs that I'm doing half an hour of every day just to be able to communicate. You know, it's language is a part of how we understand the world. So you need to know how the language came together. And you know, Bibi Netanyahu was 50% American, 50% Israeli. He was born the year after independence in Israel, but he grew up in Philadelphia, which is why he speaks English without an accent. He really has a Philly accent when he speaks English. And had his brother not been killed, his brother Yoni, who was one of the legendary soldiers in the Israeli Defense Forces, their special unit, was the only Israeli soldier killed in the raid on Entebbe in 1976. They rescued hostages from a hijacked plane. And had he not been killed and Benjamin not being forced into a new position, I think it's very likely Benjamin Netanyahu would have stayed in America. He would have become a very successful businessman, and he'd probably now be a very influential Republican senator. So there's
I don't mean to interrupt you, but my concern is, or my interest, I'm sorry, my concern, my interest is this, because you deal with, your brand is larger than life historical figures.
It's the brand that it's the brand that was forced on me as a result of my initial success.
I didn't have enough time. That was one of my other questions. How'd you get stuck in this zone, or did you want to?
I mean, I had a run of. Look, I'm the only person whose gravestone will say, "Here lies the man who wrote movies about John Adams, the Beach Boys, the Three Stooges, Anne Frank, and Judy Garland." You know, so it's one of those things. So you get typed, and so that's how that happened.
My question was this: how do you deal with a controversial figure like?
Oh, you embrace it. You embrace it.
He just went into trial. Isn't he like in the trial?
He's the longest serving prime minister in the history of Israel.
Which is not
he's under investigation for certain financial dealings that are considered suspicious, but the trial is not yet happening. He just was indicted very recently. So, but it's there's no approval of the family on this. I'm working very much in the same arena as Peter Morgan with the Crown, where you're not going to call up Queen Elizabeth and go, "Hey, back in 1955, did you do this or did you say this to your husband behind closed doors?" You're having to extrapolate based on a very public life, and I find that as an ex-journalist, because I was a reporter for 15 years, I love it. It's like that's what writing's all about for me, is doing that investigation and then trying to project what may or may not have happened in those, as the Hamilton play famously sings, in the room where it happened. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's really exciting. That's going to be an interesting project. Mark, you started I'm changing gears here because we're winding down on our time here. But Mark, you started in stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
How important do you think that is for a comedy writer?
Well, there's very few of us that actually, I mean, there's more now than there was 15 or 20 years ago. But it was really important for me because I found a voice on stage. Because I initially thought, well, I'll write for other people. I'll be like a Steve Martin or Woody Allen, same thing. They wrote for other people, and then they go, you can't make any money. You honestly couldn't, really. So I started to go on stage. Terrible stage fright. I brought up notes. I thought I had to pee every time they said my name, and I had to go on stage. And so, it was like I developed my own sort of ideas and sense, and I felt like I had something to say. So the stand-up was really critical to me believing in what 70s was, because 70s was the first time where I got to run the show, which Jimmy Valley's a friend of mine. He said, what's a showrunner? Best definition I've ever heard was Jimmy's. That a showrunner is you're still a writer-producer, but you also have to run a 7-Eleven. Make sure there's cottage cheese and make sure there's newspapers and hot dogs. And, so it's like, it's sort of a foreign thing. But the first time I did it, I was really lucky because 4 of the kids on the show had never acted before, which I wanted because I felt it would sell the idea of this thing being a real thing without, you put Jack Nicholson in the middle of something, it's Jack Nicholson. Not that he wanted to do 70s, but so you have these kids, you've never seen them before. None of them have habits because 4 of them never acted. I met them sort of halfway, So I was just really, I'm sorry, I blanked on your question now. I was trying, I met them halfway.
The question is, how important do you think it is for a comedy,
So
a writer who writes for the screen, writes comedy for the screen, how important is a background in stand-up?
well, what happened was those 4 kids, because they'd never acted before, I got to tell the network, I really don't think you should throw a lot of changes at them because they won't be able to absorb them and learn their lines. And I filmed half the show on Thursday and then half on Friday night. Half the show was a lot of single camera stuff the day before Friday, or I would cut it Friday morning and show it back to the audience, get a rough laugh track, and then film the rest of the show Friday night. But by doing that thing in the first 2 seasons, by saying, I don't think you should throw a lot of changes at them, the scripts really didn't get rewritten. And that was a blessing, but it could have been a curse if I didn't have, first of all, great actors, but second of all, confidence in the fact that, I mean, yeah, it helps to go up on stage and tell the joke and to craft it and to get it to the right place. But it's like, if you believe in it, I honestly don't care about the reaction. I know everybody else does, but if you believe in the statement, if you believe in the joke, I would fight tooth and nail to keep it and try to get the right take of it. And so in that regard, it really helped me, you know, to keep the show pretty pure. And I will say this, we went home for dinner a lot of nights writing on that show, not because we were lazy, but just because I wanted scripts done 2 months before, and I believed in what we were doing, you know? So that was it was a very blessed, lucky place. 350 people working, you know, very hard on every aspect. And, you know, that's why there's 200 of them in 8 years, which comes to 25 a year, which is sort of unheard of now. You know, some years we did 27, some years with 22, but there's 8 years, 200 episodes. So it was a blessed event, you know, I mean, but yeah, as a stand-up, I believed in what each character said. And so that helped me sort of avoid a lot of the kind of rewrites that I think a lot of people have to go through.
That's interesting. And of course, we know of a lot of famous, I mean, you know, Seinfeld and the, you know, it's not like it's a mystery that it helps. I just was curious what you thought there, but thanks for that. Elea, and I want to keep this really short. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, because we're so low on time now. We're down to 11 minutes we got left. So I want to put a few minutes to the audience to ask some questions, which I have them in front of me now. But I want to put, before I get to that, one last one to Elea. This is the last question from me. And the question, Elea, is I understand you recently worked or wrapped a film that Eleanor Coppola, wife of famed director Francis Ford, wrote. Is that right? And what was that like working with a writer like her?
It was absolutely magical, and we had an amazing cast, 8 grand ladies of cinema, including Rosanna Arquette. And
what was the name of the film? I'm sorry.
It's called the film is called Love is Love is Love. And it was selected at Tribeca, but we didn't get to go. But Sybil Shepherd is part of it, Rosanna Arquette, Valerie Pettiford. We have Rita Wilson, Maya Kazan, just some wonderful ladies. And it was, you know, there was a little bit of improvisation, but I'm not sure what the question is, but so yes, I worked with, what was it like to work with Eleanor? It was magical. It was like being at, what's the name of that place where all the magicians, that school for magicians?
The Magic Castle?
No, the one that's made.
Hogwarts.
Yes, Hogwarts.
From Harry Potter.
It was like being at Hogwarts, and she was like the Grand Mistress. It was, I can't even tell you what it was. It was the most unique experience of my life, of my career. It was amazing.
When can we expect that to be released? Hard to know right now, right? And we didn't even get a chance to get to COVID. We're going to skip that right now. I want to get the audience a few minutes here with a couple specific questions. Obviously, we're all concerned about the COVID impact on the industry. I think probably all projects are a little bit in a state of suspended animation. But anyways, thanks for that, guys. And so I got one here. Let's see. I got one for Mark. Alex from San Diego asks, any chance there'll be any 70s show reunion, even if it's just a one-shot?
Well, you never say never, right? James Bond. But I've been, people bring that up, and my feeling is, look, you should never get near All in the Family either. Not that the show was precious or perfect or whatever, but it was sort of lightning in a bottle. Those guys were all really pretty successful now too. So I don't know. It would be interesting to see an HBO film about them. Topher and I talked a couple years ago about him playing me again at 35 on a kids show, which I thought that's so meta. It's perfect. But I don't think, I would say I don't think so, but I don't really know, Mm-hmm. It's not on my radar because as much as I love and I'm proud of that, I'd rather not. Look, I did that 80s show. I don't like to go, next door. I'd like to, what's your next show about? It's nuns who are samurais. I don't want to be in that thing again. And by the way, I didn't want to call it that 80s show. I felt if you call it that 80s show, it dooms it to being compared to something that it couldn't really live up to out of the gate, which I think I was right. But anyway.
Wow, that's interesting, and we'll see. Well, I guess fans are always looking for a re-go. We got one here. Jeannie is asking on the Facebook feed to Zizi, can you tell us about Tango Shalom? What's it about?
It's about a Hasidic Jew who wants to dance the tango. And, they're not allowed to touch another woman except of their own wives. And it creates funny situations. It's a comedy. It has a lot of music, a lot of dancing. We have Karina Smirnov, who is a fabulous dancer. She was with Dancing with the Stars for many, many years. And I think it's her first movie, and she is just breathtaking. And we have Renee Taylor, Lainey Kazan, Joseph Bologna, and it's just lovely. It's a fun movie to watch. Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, we'll keep an eye out for that. Obviously, we know how COVID is. Release dates are all fluid. Let's see here. What do I got? Okay, I got another one here. Jennifer asks for Kirk. Mm-hmm. How much do you think Paul Giamatti brought to the role of John Adams?
Well, just about everything. So I mean, you write and you're hoping you get an actor who is. It was difficult to cast that because it was, despite my earlier admonition about words and pictures, there was a very dialogue-heavy miniseries, and it was a very specifically crafted language of the time. It was a challenge to do something that seemed of the period but wasn't so arch that it sounded phony to the ear. And Paul, whose father, Bart, before he was head of Major League Baseball, was chairman of Yale. So Paul grew up in a house that was steeped in history. So he could even improv in 18th century English. It was phenomenal. And he was delightful. You learn with really good actors that you're never going to be asked to write more dialogue for them. They will often come to you and say, could we try this without the words? And so he and Laura were really tremendous. And I would say that the dialogue as represented in the miniseries is a third of what was on the page. That even before shooting it, we scrapped it so they could simply act it. And that was what was really great about working with them. But Paul was a superstar. The scene in episode 2 where he gives the speech for independence, we shot over 3 days at a soundstage in Virginia. Paul gave that speech 55 times over the course of those days, and he never dropped a word. He never dropped a comma. It was incredible. Our director shot screen start or script start to script finish for every angle. There were no pickups. It was literally full takes for every angle, and it took that long to shoot that whole debate sequence. And Paul was just astonishing. He's still one of the 2 or 3 best actors I've ever had the privilege to work with. So, thanks for asking the question.
Yeah, that was Jennifer out there. Yeah, thanks for that question, Jennifer. Let's see here. We're going to have to do a last one. Let's see. Okay. Well, that's one more for Mark. This will be our last one. This is from Jim to Mark. Were you at all surprised that Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis got married?
You know, I was. I'm not going to lie about that. I mean, what some people know, but her first kiss was in the back seat of the station wagon in the pilot. And I was like, she's brilliant, by the way, and she's brilliant.
Yeah.
When she came in to read for that part of Jackie, which she nailed, and there was a line in the show where it said, where they were going to see Todd Rundgren, which is a band I grew up with. And so the line said, Michael, you had never heard Hello, It's Me before I gave you that record. Here's how Mila read it. She goes, Michael, you had never heard Hello, It's Me before I gave you that record. And, unless you'd heard the song, you would never say it like that. But she said it like that. And there was a thing in the breakdown that said everybody had to be 18 or above because I didn't want, them doing heroin and robbing 7-Elevens because I destroyed their childhood. That was like a big thing with me. I didn't want older kids, but I didn't want anybody under 18, not because I just didn't want to be responsible for that. She came in, she just killed it like nobody else. Mila killed it. And on the way out, one of the producers said, how old are you? She said, I'm going to be 18 in 4 years. She didn't lie. And honestly, at first you're like, but she had killed it so much. You couldn't think of anybody else in the part, number one. And number two, you thought, okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So we'll have one 14-year-old and 5 20-year-olds. And I would always say to them, please don't swear as much in front of her and don't. And I saw her one time, she's got to be 35 and I'm 50 something. And I see her again and she swore. And of course I met her at 14. I said, oh my God, Mila, you swear like a truck driver. And she goes, F you, Mark, I'm 35. And I was like, that's true. That's correct. You are 35. So yes, I was shocked. And now they have 2 children. And it just, I don't know. It was like she dated Macaulay Culkin. That's who I saw her with, Macaulay, who's a very nice man. And so yes, I was shocked. I met Demi Moore. So would I have? I never would have put it together. But I'm certainly grateful that those 2 people found each other, and there's 2 new people in the world because of that. So that's amazing to me. If 70s did nothing else, it did that, and that's incredible.
Yeah, it's just in a day's work, Mark.
Yeah.
It's what you do.
Yeah. I make babies.
Well, that's
I farm out babies. I farm out my baby jobs. So.
I'm going to have to wrap it up here. Our time, there's another panel coming in. So I do want to thank you all, my panelists, for being here. Gabriel Bologna and Zizi and Elea Oberon, Kirk Ellis. Thank you all. And of course, one more time, I want to say special thank you to our 2020 San Diego Writers Festival Outstanding Achievement in Comedy Writing Award recipient, Mark Brazill. Thanks for all the stories, guys and gals, and I appreciate your honesty. It was a wonderful panel, and I really appreciate you all.
It was great. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you, Carlos.